I can hear you.
Yeah. Can we start? Can we also alert our colleagues on the WhatsApp group that we're here starting in perhaps 2 minutes? I know it's getting very late. I'm also tired, but we have to do it. Uh, okay. All set. Should we start? Can you raise your hands? Sure. I'll disappear and I'll have the the PowerPoint presentation. So, as I said, this is actually what we're doing. This is our fifth workshop. And the big umbrella will be TEFL from common sense to nuance. We've been talking about this for quite some time. This time around, we're addressing errors, learners' errors, and even the errors that teachers make. I mean, we have this category that we call teachers-induced errors, and we'll have time to talk about that. Eve. So before we get started, I would like to ask you about your feelings and attitudes when it comes to errors. And I would like you to be brutally honest with yourselves, not with me. I mean, do you tolerate error in class? How do you deal with errors? If you ask me, at one point in my life, I was kind of intolerant towards errors. If I do what I'm supposed to do and I dash extra and I find my students not responding in kind, they are not reacting the way I want them to react. Sometimes I get angry or upset, frustrated. So we all have those legitimate feelings. But if they persist, if they stay with us for the rest of our careers, and obviously we have a problem. But let's talk about errors from this perspective and whether we have a shifted perspective, given the fact that you're all veteran teachers, you've been teaching, most of us, been teaching for quite some time. So what does error mean to you? I'm talking about, uh, the context obviously is the class. So what is your attitude towards error, whether it over time changed, um, what kind of development that you have had over the years? Are you more tolerant towards errors? So let's talk about it. I'm ready to hear people talk about errors, the good and the bad, and perhaps the ugly.
Yes, actually, we have to
Yeah.
be tolerant, because students learn when they make mistakes, and
Mm.
these errors can be reflections. They can reflect our ways and approaches of teaching and the ways of students learning. So we can rework on what they didn't get from us. We have to consider their errors, their mistakes. Yes.
You mean you're trying to say that errors can also some kind of guiding light. They
Yes.
can guide you. They can tell you where you're
Mm.
headed and whether you're doing a good job or perhaps
Yes.
not so, right?
Yes, I need to
So
work.
if
I need
yeah,
to give more activities. Maybe they didn't get it because I explained and I didn't give enough time for them to consume and to reflect on it. So, yes, errors can be reflections for our approaches of teaching and about also on the students' learning.
you don't consider making an error or making a mistake a sin against the Holy Spirit or a rich
No,
من
no,
عمل الشيطان,
no, no.
if you
No.
like.
It's a
Uh,
way for them to learn more.
that's interesting. Do we have other people sharing the same sentiment or perhaps have a different view?
Can I speak, Doctor?
Absolutely, yeah.
For me, I deal with errors as something natural.
Yeah.
Thanks to experience.
I mean, to err is human, like Alexander Pope said. Yeah, I mean, said at one point. To err, to make errors, is human. It's too human, right? So you take that from life to the classroom, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Can you expand on this
Thanks to
idea? No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Ms. Price.
thanks to experience, it makes me more flexible and more tolerant or accepting students' errors, and it can be a sign of their development. And sometimes because of experience, we can differentiate between whether this error because of
We lost you.
learning the target language.
Oh, you mean you're
But
trying to say
it's
that it
good to
can
make
give
mistakes.
you
I always believe,
yeah,
yes,
okay, nice.
I always
It
believe
can,
that it's good to make mistakes and errors.
yeah. But you wouldn't celebrate mistakes, obviously, right? You wouldn't go that to that extreme, celebrating mistakes, and obviously you tolerate them, but you don't celebrate them, right? Okay, can we have somebody else?
Yeah, I cannot think. I have your voice is not. I can't hear you.
Coming, can everyone hear me, Agama?
Yes, doctor. Yes, I can
Ah,
hear you.
oh,
I think I have a poor
oh,
network connection.
that's fine. That's fine, Miss Nice. Okay, so let's move on. So when it comes to errors and when it comes to our attitudes towards them as teachers, I think we have two views. Let me share that with you. This is the first view, two views when it comes to errors. Some people would perceive them as dysfunctional. It's a kind of failure, and obviously it's a collective kind of failure where part of the failure would be on the student and the other part would be on that. It's a shared responsibility of a sort in failure, unfortunately, and something to be avoided, often resulting in a focus on repetition of correct models and avoidance of mistakes. This is a little bit negative. If your starting point and your point of departure would be that you feel that this is negative, obviously you are not tolerant towards them, and it's going to take some time for you to kind of make amends if the error is induced by you, if you like. The other is what we are obviously promoting here, which is regarding errors as developmental stages, if you like. So this view considers error as a natural and positive part of the learning process. It's an opportunity to shape language production and understand learner development. This is what we learn over the years, that errors are opportunities for people, or perhaps they are suggestive of the fact that they are trying, that they are taking risks. And make no mistake about it, if the learner does not take risks in class and testing hypotheses, moving in the different shady areas of his interlanguage, obviously he wouldn't or she wouldn't develop beyond the stage that he is in. So, regarding errors as developmental, obviously, is what veteran teachers do. I mean, there were or there are stages in our trajectory as career trajectories as teachers where we are tolerant with errors and those who make those kinds of errors. But over time, we get hardened by life and we come to the realization that to err is human and it is as much about life as it is about the class. Um, so this is our attitudes towards error, and we're tilting, of course, towards the idea of tolerating errors and making them work for our students and of course for us. Let's talk about the types, and of course errors go by the common word and perhaps the more famous word mistake, and we'll make those distinctions between mistakes and errors and other synonyms. So let's stick to the generic word, which is mistake or mistakes. So let's talk about the types of mistakes that we have in the classroom. We're again confining ourselves to the classroom. So let's talk about the mistakes that we may have. In terms, again, let me perhaps tweak it a little bit. Let's talk about mistakes in terms of where our learners are. Are we talking about people who make mistake because they know that they're trying and they're testing hypotheses and that's why they are making mistakes? Are we talking about people who are unaware of what they are doing because perhaps they were not, or they are not introduced to the rule yet? So let's talk about that. So mistakes come in different forms and shapes. What are those different forms and shapes? And when I talk about types of mistakes, I'm not talking about whether they are, kind of structural or lexical, phonological. No, I'm not talking about this level. I'm talking about the level of awareness of the learner. So when we talk about mistakes, because in a minute we're going to replace the word mistake with the word error. So generically we have mistakes, and those mistakes are kind of categorized into three subcategories. We have what we call slips, we have attempts, and we have errors. So what do we mean by that? And are we going is this in their order or what? What's a slip? What's an attempt? And what is an error? Any idea? You don't have to know, by the way. I know sometimes you know, but you don't find it easy to perhaps explain it. But you know it, and I know, and I trust that you guys know them. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A slip could be like when the students say he swim instead of he swims. They just say it.
Intentional.
Yeah, this is just unintentional. They say it. Sometimes when they think about the verb, they forget the subject they used in the beginning of the sentence, especially when they use a subject and then they add some information about the subject before reaching the main verb of the sentence. So that could, I
So
guess,
do
that
they
could be
correct? Do they self-correct right away? Because this is a
if they,
mark, or this is the sign of, or the difference between perhaps a slip and an
yeah,
error or an attempt.
if they
So if they
got aware
self-correct
of the
right
mistake,
away,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Mhm,
If they got aware of the
mhm.
mistake, yeah, they definitely they correct themselves on the spot. And it also
Yes.
depends on the level of the students.
Mhm. So a slip would be, I mean, they have the knowledge, obviously,
Yeah,
but
Yes.
it
Mm,
happens
mm,
like us. I mean, whether we're native speakers or non-native speakers, it just happens. Can have a
mm,
native speaker not using the S and the subject agreement positions,
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah.
that's just a slip.
Mm,
And of course, there are occasions where he or she realizes, of course, that he made the slip, and he or she self
mm,
corrects. So
yes.
so this is what we call a slip. So it's you do have the knowledge,
Mm,
you do have the skill, but it just
mm,
happens that
Yeah.
Sometimes we even use it when we use the expression slip of a tongue, for example,
Mm.
right?
Sometimes they are tired, nervous, in
Ah,
a hurry
yes,
in the exam.
absolutely, yes.
But,
Uh,
but
So,
error,
doctor,
they don't know. They don't know. So lack of knowing something causes
Mhm.
the error. But sleep, they know. But because of some circumstances, yeah, they didn't do it well.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there is this big gap between slipping and making an error, obviously.
so doctor,
So
can
let's,
can,
yeah, go
can we
ahead.
illustrate this using performance and competence relation? That performance slip, I think it's performance mistake.
Yeah, it's performative. Yes, you're correct. I mean, obviously, sometimes there is this gap between performing. You perform in a certain way. I mean, you have the knowledge and the skills and
Yes.
everything in between. But when you perform, you have issues. Sometimes you have this gap when you have somebody who writes very well, and when it comes to talking, for example, he has those issues. Does it mean that he doesn't have the rules ready and everything? No, he does have those, but obviously he has this gap. So a slab is unintentional. A slab can be due, like Dr. Najla said, due to being tired, being inattentive, sometimes indifferent, patronizing, if you like. So this is what we mean by a slip. Let's now move to attempt, which is another type of mistake. So again, I'm talking about how much you know and how much you don't know. When you are attempting something, do you know? I'm talking about the mistake context. I'm not talking about the generic meaning of the word attempt.
I think not completely sure about the knowledge or his competence. I think
Yeah, you don't have the
there's
knowledge.
problem in
Let me put it.
competence.
You don't have the knowledge, but you are testing hypotheses, you're testing waters,
Exactly.
you're trying, you're taking risks. And this is what you expect of a learner in class, obviously, right? For them to have
Mhm.
the curiosity to try, even if they don't know yet, if you haven't introduced them to this or that kind of rule. So this is an attempt. You don't know yet, but you're trying. You're taking risks, you're testing hypotheses, and obviously because you don't know, you don't have the knowledge, you make the error that we call an attempt. And let's move to the errors. So we have slips, we have attempts, and we have errors.
I
Errors
think it's related
is
to the first lecture you or workshop you gave us. That's the most serious problem. He makes some mistakes and he doesn't know he makes a mistake. Is it
it's not
right like
about, no,
this?
it's not. I'm talking about which stage of the lesson are we in? Is it post-learning or pre-learning? Is it that the learner was not introduced to the rule yet and he is trying, like in the case of attempts, or has he or she uh, um, been taught in that, but perhaps he's not he hasn't practiced enough. Perhaps he wasn't introduced to the rule. I mean, perhaps there is room for the teacher to give to move from between controlled practice to free practice. So when I talk about errors, I talk about the post-learning stage where the learner has taken something, the learner has been taught in this or that rule, but he is still, kind of trying, he is trying to practice more. So these are the three levels of mistakes or types of mistakes that we normally have. We have slips, attempts, and we have errors. Let's talk about the sources of error. Where do I mean, perhaps why they err, why they make mistakes? Where do they get these errors from? What are the sources of error? Can you, as a teacher, be a source of error? Can
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, okay. Can the first language be a source of error? I mean, interference from the first language. Can it be a source of error?
Yeah, this is, I think, the majority of errors
Mm.
come because of this source.
And
Can it
also their
be,
prior knowledge.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
their
prior,
prior
not,
knowledge
yeah, yes,
about the
yes,
language, whatever they were taught in schools. Yeah, this makes it the biggest thing. And we started from here. Sometimes we need to tell them. Sometimes we need to tell, forget about what you know before, and let's begin from here.
yeah. So that would go under teacher-induced errors, right?
Yeah, again, teacher,
Mm.
not
Mhm.
necessarily us, but other
Mm.
teachers, I mean.
Yeah, no, no, I'm talking about teachers in general. Can it be ignorance? You don't know. That's why this is a source of error. You don't know, but you're kind of testing waters, you're taking risks, you're kind of testing hypotheses. And this is obviously something that we encourage in class. We want people to try, to take risks, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't learn. So these are different sources of error. So we're talking about ignorance as a source. We're talking about teacher-induced errors as another possible source. We're talking about overgeneralizing the rule.
Mm. The
Have,
environment also, Doctor, the environment also could be a source when
يعني إيه؟
إنه ما في the students are not engaged, the students do not feel comfortable in this classroom. You don't
You
give
mean,
enough time.
okay,
Yes,
yeah,
listen
I
to them.
understand you.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
I
not,
think, Doctor, this is communication errors, I think, what Dr. Najla means.
yeah, it's about lowering the filter, the affective filters, like Christian says. The more you lower the affective filters of the learners, the more they are able to experiment with the language, to test hypotheses, to take risks. And obviously, they make mistakes and errors that are tolerable because they are trying. Okay? So again, when we talk about the sources of errors, we talk about ignorance, we talk about overgeneralization, we talk about teacher-induced errors, right? So these are all sources of errors. So again, ignorance, overgeneralization, first language interference, and of course, teacher-induced errors, right? So let's categorize errors because they come in different forms and shapes. So errors can be productive and receptive. Errors can be, syntactic, can be lexical, can be phonological, right? What else? Can you think? How can we categorize errors? What are the different types? I know we normally have those polarities and those dichotomies. It's the one and the opposite, receptive and productive, lexical and grammatical, for example, or phonological.
Yeah. Yes, doctor. the phonological errors are there because of the mother tongue as
No,
the
no,
past
no,
and
I don't want
advanced.
you to Dr. Talat. We're not explaining. And I want you to categorize errors, to give me categories, give me a taxonomy of the errors. Like I said, it can be this or that, it can be this or that.
I'm not sure, but we can refer to contextual errors, but I don't know which category can this lie in. I mean, sometimes if you want me to give an example to make it clear,
Yeah,
when they
okay.
look for the meaning of a word, like for example, any word, and the word has different meanings, and they pick one that does not fit the context, something like that. This is very common because they usually translate into Arabic, into the first language, I mean.
Right. Let
This
me
is a
help
very
you.
common.
Would you consider this overt or covert error? You know, errors can be divided into covert errors and overt errors. Obviously, covert means CIA kind of errors, if you like, where it's hidden, it's not very clear, it's implicit rather than explicit. And overt means it's clear. What you're talking about is what? Explicit, overt, or implicit, covert?
For them, for the students, and now we're talking
Yeah, if you're talking
from
about
whose point of
context,
view?
you're talking about the
Yeah.
context.
Okay. I mean, we need. You want me to label the error in
Yeah,
terms of
you're
from which?
identifying or you're detecting the error, you yourself as a teacher, right? You're talking that there
Yeah.
is a contextual error here. I'm
Mm.
saying, and I'm asking you whether contextual errors are covert or overt. Are they easy to detect, or
For
they are
me,
not
for the
that
teacher, for me, for
yeah,
the
for the
teacher,
team.
yes. From the teacher's point of view, perspective, yes, very easy to detect. That's why you focus all the time in any vocabulary task. You focus on the context more than the meaning of the word itself. You need to think of the context. Sometimes I ask the students
which area or which skills, which skill are we talking about? Are we talking about reading, for example?
vocabulary fits in all skills, and it's an integral part in all skills. Vocabulary. I'm talking
Yeah.
mainly
So
about
when you talk about a context, you talk about either reading or writing, right?
reading, yeah, writing, yes, sure.
Okay.
And sometimes when I give them like a gap filling task, I ask students to replay. خلاص, okay, we will use this word in this gap. Okay, give me other verbs, for example, if it's a verb that we can use to replace this one and fits in this context. So they come up with different verbs that can be used to give the same meaning in this specific context. So in this way, I help them understand this specific meaning of the word in this to match it with the context. Outside of the context type, can we say that these verbs are synonymous verbs? Definitely not, they are not. But they give the same meaning here. They fit this context only. But the idea of, I remember one of the students who was writing the meaning of in Arabic. So I just told them, don't do that, because if you look for the meaning of this Arabic word, you will find different verbs that they don't fit in this specific context.
You're talking
They do
about
this.
the collocational range of the word or the phrase.
Even words, single words, not in collocations. But they have the same problem.
Okay.
But doctor, this means that they are not overt, they are covered.
This is what I'm
Because
saying. I mean, I can sense. Yeah.
But they are not.
They are subtle
Why
sometimes.
overt are easily recognized.
Well, that's why I asked if this is from our point of
Perhaps it's
teachers.
it's overt from the point of view of the teacher. This is what Dr. Rabab is trying to say.
Yeah,
Doctor,
exactly.
as I
That's why I recognized the errors, and I just quote the errors with the students, and we highlighted them, we explained, and I brought this to their attention. But for me, it was overt. For them, they didn't notice this. But for them, that's why I asked it from whose point of view you want me to answer? From students' point of view, definitely, they were not aware that this is a problem.
Okay.
Doctor, as I understand, Dr. Rubab added that the textual errors, which can be both explicit and implicit, or covert or overt, as you said. So when the error is inside, the SAR is made, and the actual error is there in their SAR, SAAR. So sometimes the SAR is reflected through the language which we can recognize, but sometimes it doesn't reflect with. So it's implicit in the students, but there are from some students we get the idea, and from some we don't get.
So that would make it obviously covert. I mean, by covert, obviously we mean that we need to dig deep and perhaps apply a number of feelers and tests so that we can get to know the level of understanding of the student. Yeah, I think we'll have time for more about that. So again, when we talk about errors, they are either overt, explicit, or covert. Another classification would be that in terms of the stage, where they are in the trajectory of the lesson, whether they are pre-systemic, systemic, or post-systemic. And I think they speak for themselves. So you can almost tell, what do I mean? So when I talk about a pre-systemic error, that would correspond to the attempt that we're talking about. The student was not yet exposed to the rule, but he or she is taking risks. He or she is testing hypotheses, is trying to venture. He or she hasn't taken the rule yet, but he is kind of experimenting. This is called pre-systemic. And then we move the systemic error. And this is obviously the error that students do immediately after they take the lesson, you give them the rule, and they start to kind of try. It's part of their practice stage, but obviously they are not totally there yet. They haven't perfected and mastered the skill yet. And then we have the post-systemic stage where they still make the error. And obviously you can tie it up to the idea of slips. They know the rule, but perhaps it's negligence on their part. Perhaps it's they are being tired. So this is what we call the post-systemic kind of errors. Another, classification would be, and this is easy. When we talk about errors in terms of whether they are productive or receptive, and obviously we're referring here to the 4 skills. So of course, you know that productive skills would be writing and speaking, and receptive skills would be listening and reading. So obviously, when you have productive errors, we're referring to errors in speaking and in writing. When you talk about receptive errors, we're talking about errors in reading and listening. We also categorize errors into whether they are lexical, having to do with the lexis or the vocab items, whether they are structural or grammatical, whether they are phonological, whether we're talking about different level, phonological levels, whether we're talking about segmental errors or suprasegmental errors, obviously. Why? Why are we talking about, again, this is also a categorization. Errors can be group errors where the whole class share, or a good chunk of students share the error, or individual errors. You have 1 or 2 people making this error. And obviously it can impact your choices and how you're going to go about correcting this error. So again, knowing about those kinds of errors and categorizing them is not a luxury. Actually, it gives you insights, and it can help you with the decisions that you normally make. How you can approach those errors and how you can find solutions for them. So let's talk about the classroom implications of all of what we have been talking about: the sources of error, the different error categories, and our attitudes towards them. Let's go to the classroom and see how that can impact our teaching choices, how we approach errors. And again, our point of departure would be that um, errors are not a bad thing. I mean, they can be uh, guiding light. They can help us identify our own errors as teachers, errors in teaching this or that uh, kind of rule in this or that kind of way. So, so knowing about errors and having those feelings of tolerance towards those who make those kinds of errors can go a long way towards you addressing those errors in the right way. Uh, so, what other implications? What do we know? What do we do actually in class? Knowing that errors come in different forms and shapes and they have different categories. Do you think, I'm asking, do you think knowing about that, and you already know, I know, and you have more knowledge than you give yourself credit for, I'm sure. Um, do you reflect on that? I mean, this aspect of teaching, a very important one, I promise you. Do you reflect on this idea of error and how you approach error, or you just do it? Um, perhaps if you have a teacher's guide, you follow the teacher's guide, and you perhaps focus more on when to correct than on what the error uh, means and what category it is from. So I need your thoughts on that.
The first thing here, I myself emphasize in all my classes that doing errors and making mistakes are highly tolerable in class. You're encouraged actually to make mistakes in the class. If I don't do that, they will not participate. It's okay. And sometimes even when they make the mistake and I realize there is a mistake here or there is an error here, I have to praise something in whatever they say first, and then I refer to the error. And the way I refer to the error is also something, and sometimes I ignore the error for one student who is who was shown for a long time to be, for example, shy, reluctant to speak. So I just tolerate it. But later, I may put the sentence on the board and ask all the students to find the mistake and correct it. And I may also ask the same specific student to give me his or her reflection on the sentence they already made. Sometimes they are not aware that this was this was their sentence. Sometimes they are not aware of this. But the idea of approaching errors, number one for me is the approach. How to deal with this with the students, how to correct their mistakes in a way that does not stop their participation in class.
You don't want them to lose face, right?
Yeah, of course.
And you don't want to alienate them, and they end up not participating at all, right?
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
Mm.
For me, this is because this is a language classroom. At the end, they are here. They will learn definitely, and definitely they will learn. And at the end of the course, the class, the day, definitely they will learn something, and we will reach a satisfying point for both of us, for me as a teacher, and also for them as students, as learners. But the
Would
thing is, I don't
yes.
want.
Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
And I don't want them to stop participating in my class and to make like a trauma for them in other classes. And I saw this, and I've seen this actually many times. Students, they come traumatized from other classes, and they don't like to participate. They fear to participate. This is something we need to think about.
Yeah, it's about the when and the how, right?
Exactly. And
Somebody's
also about
raising
the yes but,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the yes but technique, and we need
Mm.
to praise something first before we say but. Yeah, yes, this is great, this is excellent, this is perfect, but what about changing this to
Mm.
that? But what about the idea of we can just put it in different ways, but number one, we need to praise their participation, we need to encourage them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, encouraging them would take also sometimes if you're approaching the error or perhaps handling the error in a tactful way. I mean, like
Sure.
using techniques like recasting, you wouldn't, for example, say that you're wrong. For example, right in his or in her face. I mean, eliciting the right answer. There are, I'm sure that there are different ways and means, right? So
Yeah, sure.
somebody's
And the
raising, yeah,
teacher, okay,
yeah, go ahead.
fine.
Yeah,
It, this the
yeah.
teacher has the freedom actually either to use the instant feedback way or the delayed feedback way. So I can just wait, or on the spot if I can't just skip it. And it depends, كمان, on
Um, um,
the learning outcome of the
uh,
lesson. If it's
yes,
if I
it
focus
depends
on accuracy
on the aim,
versus
absolutely. Yeah.
fluency, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, yeah, somebody's raising his or her hand.
Yeah, yes, doctor. Almost the similar kind of thing that Dr. Rubab ended up. Mostly the correction for me is situational, and it varies from student to student as well as say, different situation to situation. If it is in communication, then I use different strategy to correct them. If it is grammatical, it differs. So this is like similar kind of thing that has been discussed. So it's no need to waste the time, doctor. Thank you.
Okay. So differentiation is what Dr. Talat is referring to. But I wonder يعني, how she would find the time to kind of deal with individual students. Obviously, it's bigger than that. It's more of a, adopting, pragmatic and practical approaches to errors and to everything else in class. Let's move on. So we're talking about the implications. We're talking about the classroom implications. And I have some, and I would like you to tell me whether you relate to them, whether you agree, or what. Yeah, look at them. I'll give you a couple of minutes to read all of them, and then we can always talk about it. So what are some of the takeaways? Things that you were not implementing in class and you're likely to implement as perhaps tomorrow. No, tomorrow is Friday. It's off. As of when we come back from the Eid break, inshallah. So what are some of the takeaways, if any?
Errors are natural in classrooms. We have to accept them, but they have to be like indications. We have to reflect on our ways of teaching and on our students and styles of learning. We might change something. We might add. Might.
I like
Yes.
this idea of reflection. Being a reflective, conscientious teacher can make all the difference, honestly. When you finish the class and perhaps when you have time for yourself, you start to think of what you have done and whether you have done it well or not. So being a reflective teacher is amazing, obviously. Yes. So I wonder how many of us are reflective teachers. Do you reflect on your teaching practice? It doesn't
do.
have to be class by class. It can be at the end of a semester, at the end of a teaching week. So I reflect on my teaching practice, and let me be honest with you, I'm not happy at all with the way I teach. Remember, I shared a video with you the other day, and I don't know whether, but it came with a number of caveats. I told you that it was Ramadan time, and it was a literature class where I am normally a broken radio. I monopolized the talk, I promise you. So let's talk a bit. Those who have seen the video, do you think I kind of preach what I don't practice? And let's be honest here. I'm not going to take away marks from you, obviously.
You
Yeah,
achieved
Maisa, go ahead.
something very essential in our any language class, which is making students uh, engaged and let them speak about whatever they think or whatever comes into their minds.
So it's a relationship with the learner that I was focusing
This is
on. This is what you're
yes,
trying. This
yes,
is
to
what
give
I
them
was
their
prioritizing. Yes. Who else saw the video or watched the video? Okay.
In
Perhaps
fact,
that can
Doctor,
be,
I
yeah,
in fact
nice.
I
Good.
envied your students because you remind me of my literature because my BA in my BA I studied literature, so I envied your students indeed.
I'm flattered here. I'm humbled. Thank you,
Wallahi,
Maisa, so
Doctor,
much.
don't be harsh on yourself because it just happens to everyone. Sometimes we have ups and downs in classes. We're not
So
going
you're
on.
acknowledging, you're saying that it was all down. So if you have seen the video,
I don't
you're
remember,
all.
and I'm sorry for this, but I don't remember, to be honest. But the thing is, yeah, sometimes, when I leave the class, I feel that it could have been better for different. It's sometimes, yes, it's me, and also sometimes it's the students. Sometimes when they really they come just for the attendance and they don't want to do anything in the class.
They
And if
hide,
attendance was
they
not there,
hide behind the screen and behind this kind of keyboard. They don't want to participate. So you have to do
yeah,
all the talking. Obviously, there is going to be a vacuum in class. You don't talk and they don't talk. So
yeah,
somebody has to
yeah,
do it, obviously, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
this is how it
mm.
happens. But yeah, it's really important for teachers to be to evaluate to reevaluate themselves every now and then, and to, but again, not to be very harsh on yourself. So when I find, I just analyze what are the reasons and why are they there. But this is important. If I find the justification for me not doing well in a class, in one of the classes, so I just to make sure that this is not the habit. Uh, So that's the
Yeah,
thing.
Arif, yeah, Nagla,
Yes, I'm like
you're
you.
trying to say something.
Yes, Dr. Samah, I have the same way like you. I always blame myself if they are absent. I tell myself if they benefit from my classes, so why they are absent? There is
Yeah, if they
something.
have a stake, and this is what I keep telling myself and yeah, my colleagues, if they have a stake in what happens in class, they wouldn't absent
Yes,
themselves.
if they
But
don't
this is
participate.
not, yeah, like Rabab is saying, this is not a good measure because they can have all kinds of reasons. Um, and I keep telling my
Wallahi, let me tell you
student,
something.
yeah, go ahead, Rabab.
That just the student's nature has changed a lot, and we need to be updated with the student's nature. Sometimes they know this class is very beneficial and really helpful, and the teacher is one of the best. But again, they have other distractors.
Yeah.
So not coming to the class doesn't mean that it has to do with me all the time.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes, you're right, Doctor. But yani, we should think about it. We should attract them, engage them, give them change. You know, if you give a baby the same food, they will not like to
Yeah,
eat. So we have to
exactly.
change.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
it's
we're
the
agreed
idea.
on,
The idea.
yeah,
Yeah, the idea
go
is just
on.
about not to be extreme in either way, and not to be very lenient on yourself, and also not to be very harsh on yourself. The idea is just to be objective to yourself, just measure, but analyze, evaluate objectively,
And
and just to keep going, and that's it.
yeah, and conscientious. I mean, I would sum it up in the word conscientious. Conscientious is about being, again, kind of fair to yourself and fair to the students also. So
Yeah,
again, we're
sure.
agreed on those classroom implications that I was referring to. Uh, so let's look at this aspect, and obviously this is going to be our last, responding to errors or errors in class. And obviously, people have different approaches as how they approach errors. Some of them are intentional about what they do in class, and this is obviously very good. Self-awareness and awareness is great. And some of us do it, I don't know, it's not by design, they just do it. And this is obviously dangerous because it can alienate. If it's not done the right way, it may and it can alienate the students. So let's talk about responding to errors, the, the wins and the hows. And let's draw on your experiences as veteran teachers. You've been teaching for quite some time. So when it comes to error. I mean, you have, let's look at this scenario where you have a student who made an error, a language error. So would you, and obviously he was in the middle of a speech or a conversation, and um, you would think about it. Should I stop him or her, or should I allow him to go on and perhaps I forget about the error? Um, what do you think? Do we have considerations that we have to make, or it just happens? It's just spontaneous. I stop one student today, and the next time I don't stop another student. What goes into approaching and responding to errors?
And this specific example you gave, a student
Uh,
giving a speech, I
yeah, no,
wouldn't stop
no,
him. I
a
just take
speech
notes.
by a speech I mean conversation. He is in the middle
Or a
of a conversation.
presentation,
Yeah,
yeah, in the
yeah.
middle of a task, like a
I mean, they
presentation or
are
something like
talking. I
that.
mean, you're monitoring a group of students, and one of them made a mistake. Should you stop and say, this is the way, even if you recast it, which is an indirect way of referring to the error? Would you do that,
It
or
depends.
would you
It
wait?
depends. Yeah.
Yeah,
If this is
this
just a
idea
group,
of it, it depends. Yeah, this idea of of it depends, yani can make all the difference. So let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, if they are a group preparing for a presentation and I'm just monitoring on how they are being prepared for the presentation, of course, and I corrected their mistakes instantly. So when I see it, okay, make it like improve the sentence, consider this, and I can just underline with a pen on my hand. If they are practicing from an outline or a draft, something like that, I underline the mistake, improve the sentence. This can be better. I can refer to a word, for example, this is basic language. We need you use advanced vocabulary, something like that. So this can be, yes, instant, but while they are presenting, no, I just take notes, and of course I don't stop them, because for them to give a presentation is one of the biggest challenges for many students, for the majority actually. So I
Let's
can't
go
stop
down.
them.
Forget about presentation giving. And obviously, you're talking about a high level of students. So let's go down and talk about you're giving a language class, whether it's a grammar or a Lexis class. And
Yeah,
again,
I correct.
yeah.
I correct
Would you?
instantly.
Yeah.
I correct
Would you correct?
instantly.
Would you correct instantly without thinking about it? What goes
Yeah,
into it?
I correct instantly, but also in a positive approach. And I correct instantly, of course, and sometimes, especially when this is, as you mentioned, during their understanding or grasping the target language, of course, I correct instantly.
Wouldn't you consider whether you're prioritizing accuracy or fluency? Wouldn't that matter?
Yes,
Wouldn't
it
you
depends.
look into that?
It depends on your focus, actually. You are focusing on writing a sentence, so on the spot you will correct them. You are focusing on ideas and the fluency, so you leave them and they make mistakes, no problem, for the sake of fluency. So it depends. I don't stick to one way, actually. Sometimes, especially with very weak students, I praise and I encourage and I say very good, although it is not good at all, but only for them to give more, to try, But maybe for the second time, I stop them and I correct very specific points, they need to in order to improve. So it depends on your focus and the
Yes.
focus of the class also.
Depends on your aims. Yeah. Whether it's, again, you don't want them to get caught in the crossfire between accuracy and fluency. If you don't get your priorities as a teacher right, your class will not pass. I mean, this is not a successful class, I promise you.
Yes,
So
right.
you need to set your priorities right. Yeah, Maisa, go ahead.
Yes, for me, I will not break the train of the students' thoughts. If it's not going to hinder communication, I will not interfere. But sometimes, what I do, what I usually do in my classes, I pretend to highlight something they said as if it's important. Uh, I pretend to highlight it, so I repeat the word, but I repeat it with the corrected form.
Yeah,
If
this is
they,
what we call recasting. This is called recasting. And
yes,
in ELT, we call it
but
recast. Yes, yes.
unless it hinders communication, I would not interfere.
No, that's a very good approach. Yeah.
Uh,
Still, yeah, go ahead,
Also,
Dr. Kua.
not only about, we just limited it to the speaking classes, but also in
No,
a
no.
writing class. I feel like sometimes I focus more on the organization of the ideas and the unity of ideas. So when they write a whole essay, 4-paragraph essay or something like that, when my main focus in the task is to focus on the unity and the organization of their ideas, because this is a real problem. I don't look at the grammar mistakes they make, regardless of how many they are. Because we usually begin with like a mind map or a graph or something like this to help them organize their ideas. When they put this in the essay, in the production, sometimes I find it with some students, they're still mixing up ideas or for example, examples that fit to one of the sub ideas for it. They just mix up examples using examples. So I don't read and I don't correct or the grammar mistakes. So it depends on the focus, what I'm looking for in their production or in the task they're doing.
Now we're perhaps focused on this idea of encounter. When you are encountering the students, whether it's a grammar or a vocabulary class, if it's a speaking class, obviously you're face to face with the student. But you don't want to alienate him or her by stopping the flow, like Nagla is saying, or I think it was somebody else. Yes. So writing is obviously something, because writing by nature is something that you do in a relaxed way, and it's normally individual, because you're talking about essays where you have variations. This student wrote an essay that is obviously different from the other student, so you have room to talk to him on I mean, a face-to-face kind of a one-on-one kind of encounter where he wouldn't or she wouldn't lose face. It's
Yeah. And
right?
you know, Dr. Samah, what makes a problem? You know, when, for example, when I give comments on the organization of the idea and then of their ideas, and then they take my comments and they modify, they apply my comments, and then they come again with the second draft of their writing. So when I read this time, I know their ideas are organized. So now I will focus on the grammar and the punctuation, and so I
Yeah.
come up with new comments. So for them, they say they usually complain. Why didn't you tell from the very beginning? No, because we have things to look at.
Yeah, we have priorities. If we set our priorities right, we have this. Again, I'm talking about categorization. When it comes to writing, for example, you divide the effort into mechanical part and rhetorical part, and you don't mix between them when it comes to teaching them, or when it comes to giving feedback on what they did. Yeah,
and it's better for them. It's better for them, and when they take it bit by bit. We focus now on the rhetorical part of their writing. So they understand, they apply, they practice, they perfect. Okay, and then the next time for the mechanical part of their language. So when they focus, they take it bit by bit. If I give them all at once, they will get confused. They will not understand. They will not know what specifically I need them to achieve in their writing.
I think, Doctor, also planning is a magic in the teaching process. If you give the students rubrics in advance, if you insist on the things that you will examine them or you will give in the exam is important. When you apply or implement different approaches in teaching is important. When you focus on the important part in your class is important. So I think planning is a magic. Having rubric in whatever you give them, giving them rubrics is important. Focusing on, I always teach, I can say, test-based teaching. So I consider what they will be asked in the exam to do. So we need to focus on.
Which is a bad practice. I to have classes that they are geared towards the exam. No, this is the impression, the negative impression.
And I don't mean the functions, Doctor. I don't mean the functions. No, I mean if you will ask them to write an essay, so the ideas, because writing is connected to reading. You have to teach them that reading is very important if they want to improve their writing. You have to show them the way how reading can help them to write. You have to give them a rubric for reading and rubric for writing. This way. I'm not focusing on functions, grammar, vocabulary.
No. I'm trying to say that if you tie everything to the exam, they will have their hearts and minds set
No, I
on
mean,
how to learn so that they can pass the exam.
like
And
what I
obviously,
mean,
we're not here for them to pass the exam, and we're
no,
trying to teach them
I
language.
mean this, doctor, because sometimes they are asked to write an essay, but in the class, the teacher never gave them time to write a whole essay in the class. So how you didn't give them, and in the exam you ask them? You got my point? This is what I mean by test centered, because they will be asked to write an essay to 250 words in half an hour. I have to have them do it in the class. You got my point? Not only to ask them to do grammar, to do vocabulary, to do punctuation. Then in the exam, they got shocked. They didn't practice. This is what I mean, doctor. Okay? Long
You
read.
mean you mean your approach is holistic, where
Yeah,
you focus on the rhetorical aspects,
yeah,
and with the rhetorical aspects will be talk about grammar, vocab, and everything in between, right?
sure, sure,
Yeah.
yes.
So let's move on. Again, it's all about responding to errors in class. And this is how people respond to errors. I would like you to read this. Responding to errors. Teachers has to make a choice about how to respond to students' errors, and the teacher can do one of the four. I would like you to kind of read these things.
And I think we can do them all, doctor, but one at a time. Yani, I think it
Well,
depends.
yeah, again, it depends
Yes,
uh,
the
on
focus of.
on your aims and on your priorities, your lesson priorities, whether you're prioritizing accuracy or fluency, which part of the lesson, which part of the perhaps the semester. Um, it depends on a lot of things. I mean, you even have, which is very strange, you even have the option of ignoring the error altogether in the interest of a higher goal or a higher value. If this is, if the error is not relevant to the focus of the lesson, or if you find that if it's going to be overwhelming for the student and you have such a limited time, for example. So obviously, ignoring the error in our culture is, obviously is a sin against the Holy Spirit, if you like, where you cannot afford to ignore the error. Obviously, it's a mark of deficiency. People would tax you for that. But it's there in the literature. You can ignore the error and it's fine, right? So these are different ways and strategies as how you can respond to the error. You can ignore the error if you think that it's not relevant to the focus of the lesson, or perhaps it's too overwhelming given the constraints of time. You can correct the error immediately if it's going to benefit or if there is immediate benefit for the students and it's relevant to what you're doing in the class. You can note down the error and correct it at a later stage. You can note down the error and plan a lesson which focuses on the error, especially if you think that the error is massive in terms of how many people make the same error or mistake. If you think that the number is big, you may want to plan a whole lesson around it, and that would be the end of our event, and actually that would also mark the end of this set of workshops and the whole pavilion. I think we have room for reflection. If you guys would like to say something before we call it a night.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sameh, for all the sessions I've attended. Actually, they were very informative and refreshing. Thank you. Inshallah, I hope they will be repeated later in the next
Inshallah.
semesters, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Great
Thanks.
effort. Wallahi, jazakallah khair. Shukran, Dr. Sam.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Rabab. Thank you,
It was
Dr. Rabab.
amazing. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Dr. Nakla. Thank you. Your session was amazing earlier today. Thank you for it. Thank you, Dr. Rabab. Your input were great. Your contributions were very valuable, and they added value to our conversations and hangouts. Thank you for that.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Dr.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Yes.
You're always been very
Thank you, Dr. Sameh.
Thank you, Ms. Fadwa. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Maisa, Dr. Muhammad.
Oh,
We
I'd
really
like to say
appreciate your
something.
effort, Doctor.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you. Thank you,
okay.
Fatwa.
Can I say something?
Yeah, make it short and sweet because everybody obviously it's suhoor time and we're all hungry.
Of course. That just to say that's really marked the second phase in my teaching job. The first change really was CELTA, and now you really consolidated my study in CELTA real, and it put it in practice. So thanks a lot, doctors.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you so much. You added value through your contributions. They were very
Thanks.
valid and relevant and everything in between. Thank you so much.
Thanks, doctor.
On this note, and with this item, we come to the end of this lovely workshop. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon, inshallah. Ramadan Kareem wa Eid Mubarak alaykum. Assalamu alaikum.
الله أكبر. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.